Hi all and welcome to this week's edition of Straight Talk with Brent O'Brien and Tim Rowe from The Straight, brought to you by our sponsors Darley and Inglis. Today we reflect on a big weekend for Cambridge Stud with a chat with their CEO, Henry Plumtree, discuss the upcoming English breeding sales with Harry Bailey. In racing we review a big weekend for Godolphin and for Super Seth, plus discuss the latest developments in the Rosehill issue. And in wagering, does Australia need a fourth big bookmaker? Tim, let's get stuck into it. It's a time of year where what goes on the racetrack really impacts what's happening in the breeding industry and the sales ring. So much feature racing over the weekend and some important results for some big players. Obviously, Cambridge Stud's marquee mare Joliestar delivered a dominant victory in the Newmarket Handicap. Where does Joliestar sit amongst Australia's best sprinters at the moment, do you feel, Tim?
She's got to be up there. And, privately in our chat groups, I'm not happy to admit, but I will admit that I got her wrong. She's obviously won 1,000 guineas at 3, lightly raced, typical Chris Waller, well managed, patience from trainer and the owners. I thought 1,200 wasn't her go, but proved down the straight on Saturday that, held up. She's got electric turn of foot for a furlong plus, 200 metres plus, and she's right up there, as we'll hear later on from Henry, is that, they're probably going to keep her sprinting. Royal Ascot's probably off the cards for this year at least, and then, target the Everest, that 20 million or, 10 million for first, however it's split. It's just very hard to ignore, as it was last year for Joliestar and Cambridge Stud.
Yeah, and probably what the Everest has changed a little bit is probably those horses which probably sit in that, sprinter miler category are more sort of retained as sort of sprinter category now because the Everest is such an important race. But obviously there's a lot of sprint Group 1 races in Australia, a lot of opportunities to get continued Group 1 stamps on their pedigree page that makes a difference. It was also a big weekend in New Zealand as well with the NZB Champions Day, the inaugural edition of that format, and that was a spectacular success as well. So Tim, you had a great chat with Henry Plumtree about the result of Joliestar and the importance of that NZB Champions Day over the weekend. And here's Henry chatting to Tim.
Yeah, look, she had a very frustrating spring, Jim. The average with target, it didn't come off. But we sort of were faced with a choice of moving her in Sydney for the Golden Eagle or moving her down to Melbourne and running that champion sprint. The camp was divided. But in the end, I think Chris wanted to keep her in Sydney and just make sure that she got to the Golden Eagle in good form, and it didn't work, for whatever reason. So it was great to see her come back in the Newmarket. I mean, we were very pro going down to Melbourne. After that comeback run in Sydney, we didn't want to stay in Sydney running capital mistakes. And, I've been wanting to try her up straight for a while. I think she's pretty exceptional, and I don't think we often hear that thing of, I didn't go up straight. I can't quite work that out because I think most racehorses are pretty good straight line, and I knew she would be. So it was great to see her come back. Really good.
Yeah, well, I've read that there was Royal Ascot potentially on the cards, but has that been ruled out and sort of more targeting the spring and the Everest again?
I mean, the logical next step is for TJ. We sort of had a look at the William Reid, but it's only 2 weeks before the TJ. That means you've got to run in the William Reid, got to put her on a float, send her up to Sydney. And some horses could do that. I don't think Chris thinks that she's that type of mare. I think he thinks that if you can give her 3 to 4 weeks between run, that's a much better option. And I agree with you. She's a Zoostar tip, and they can be quite, they can be quite tricky. Press the one button. But I think that gives her plenty of breathing space for the TJ. What happens after that is that, I think we would probably focus on the spring. Ask her to one of the operational things to do, but you wouldn't be able to run any efforts in the spring and do Ascot. What would we rather do? We'd rather have a presence in Australia in the spring. And it may be the Everest, it may be the part that did Territory Sweat like 2 years ago. We'll be there. Next year at the Swan Song, for anything possible. But with Brendan and Joe, they get very close to these good fillies. And I know that the safety thing with them would be paramount in their mind. And maybe I'd get a bridge too far.
If she did go over next year and sort of close out her racing career, would you consider sending it to one of those very good Northern Hemisphere stallions like a Frankel or a Siuni, or there's a host of them?
Be a bit cool to be a New Zealand sort of state.
He might be the next big thing by then.
You never know. He might be a big thing. I tell you what, right to my good man, went to the son of Frankel last year, tell you. So, would that be an option? Yes, it might be. Would we be better off bringing it back and sending it to one of the super stallions in Australia? That would be more target to me. I look at stallions like Schnitzel and think what a phenomenal stallion he's been and continues to be. I'm Invincible. They're great stallions, Tim. I mean, they're our game-changing stallions, those horses. And the Frankel experiment, Kingman experiment, I haven't seen it work yet. It's been tried a few times. It's produced a few very high-priced yearlings, but I haven't seen it convert into a multiple group.
Okay. I don't know where you spent last Saturday, obviously Joliestar at Flemington, but it was a big day in New Zealand racing with the first running of the NZB Kiwi and Champions Day. How did you see that at Ellerslie?
Look, I think everyone involved from, inception all the way through deserves to stand up, take about it. I thought it was a fantastic day. It added to practice, and there were the inevitable murmurs about it through the year, or this wasn't right, that wasn't right. I should have thought about this. At the end of the day, Tim, Saturday was a huge success. They assembled a quality field for that Kiwi Scot race, and, we had a local winner, which is fantastic, by Savafield, but the Australian horses that came over and ran out of their skin, and they are horses that would, they'd be able to take their place in Australian Group 1 at perform well and to evaporate that topic attack. So, look, in terms of content, I thought the quality was very high. The other races, same thing. With a lot of excitement, and it had a huge crowd there. I look back at the stand before the start of the Scot race. Both stands absolutely chock-a-block. We haven't seen that in New Zealand in 20 years, 25 years. So, huge success on every front, and they deserve to be congratulated.
Yeah. And just back on Cambridge Stud, as you sort of touched on, you heavily supported Chaldine. I spoke to Mark Chittick from Waikato Stud earlier this week about Super Seth, and obviously he's had a great period and back-to-back Australian Guineas and Randwick Guineas winners. But the level of investment required to stand a stallion like Super Seth, and Cambridge has been through this, spending a lot of money to acquire them. It's not, you're in for the long haul before you break even and hope you get some success like Super Seth has.
Yeah, of course you do. I mean, it does happen all the time, but I mean, I think Super Seth was we know that Chittick's a great stud master, and you can choose one stallion and get lucky in it. Look, you choose two, more of a cut. If you choose 3 or 4, you know what you're doing. The Godolphin had that touch. Waikato have had touch. They've had great stud there. Not the stud of it. O'Reilly was great stud. Venus was a great stud. And, with Super Seth, it's that high chaparral line, which just seems to nick really well in Australia, and good luck. He's had back get his winners in the space of a week. That's a huge result for the first season, and, you take your hat off to. And hopefully we'll do the same with one of ours. Alman Dor continued to kick gold for us, he $30 value. And he kept up with the required number of group horses every year. We'd love to have another one this autumn, and perhaps we will.
And joining us on Strike Talk is Inglis Bloodstock sales manager Harry Bailey. Inglis, of course, one of our new sponsors here on Stroke Talk. Great to have them on board. Harry, we're in that month between Premier and Easter. I guess we're sort of still in yearling sales mode broadly, but things turn pretty quickly to the breeding sales, don't they? And we want to have a chat with you about both the weanling sale and the chairman sale and the Australian broodmare sale that are coming up in May. I mean, talk to us about how that's coming together.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously we've had 2 great sales so far, Classic and Premier onto Easter, which gives us great confidence for the breeding stock sales. The weanling sale in Sydney is going to be 2 fantastic days of selling. I mean, the weanling sale in particular is a market we've really targeted in the last couple of years. The weanling sale, our weanling sale series has grown exponentially. I mean, last year we turned over just over 28 million, and that's the only weanling sales series which has grown in the last couple of years. So, we're getting some fantastic support from major vendors like Millburn Creek, Noralim, obviously Robert Crabtree is selling a lot of weanlings, Newgate, Sedge and Hoe, Armourvale. So, we're very, very excited for what is going to be a fantastic week of selling, starting with the weanling sale on the 4th and 5th of May, and then going on to what is arguably the best night selling probably in the world in the chairman's sale, where, it's obviously elite broodmares and elite racing stock. It's a really fun evening. We've got some fantastic mares locked in already. Obviously, you would have seen in the press the likes of Group 1 winners, Coco Sun, Raw Merchant, as well as the likes of Estriella, Grinzinger Bell, Samana, Dancing Alone. I mean, Mumbai Muse, She Dances. And then there's some dams of some top-class horses as well. So dams of Coco Sun, Tudan Lizzie. And then we've already got some very, very exciting pregnancies locked in. So, that is arguably one of the most exciting nights of the year. There's going to be every major buyer, both domestically and internationally there. And it's a really fun evening. So, if you're thinking of entering a mare or a weanling for the weanling sales series, don't hang about. I mean, it's coming together really, really well. Certainly demand is going to be very strong, and speaking to pinhookers and to buyers of broodmares, they are going to be, very active. And then we go on to the broodmare sale the following day, the Australian broodmare sale. The broodmare sale series last year turned over 9 million. We had 28 lots make 100,000 or more. So it's a smaller catalogue than, I suppose, other broodmare sales around the 200 mark. So you get the opportunity to really stand out, especially if you're a nice map.
It's a 12-month process recruiting for particularly chairman's sale, these nice mares, and keeping tabs on where they're up to and keeping connections on side, I guess. And it's hugely competitive. I know you're a sponsor, but, Magic Millions go hard as well trying to recruit these top mares. Obviously, you put in a lot of work to try and get them over the line.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's probably not just a 12-month process. These mares, some of them have been on our radar for 24 months, maybe longer. We're building up relationships with the connections of these horses for a number of years. And obviously, in many cases, they've been long-term clients of Inglis. So it's a never-ending process. And, we're hopeful that in some cases, a lot of these horses would have been sourced from our yearling sales or weanling sales. I mean, it's great to be able to, go the whole way through and be able to resell them at the end of their racing career as well. It's a fantastic way to culminate their racing career, and I suppose it's a brilliant way to highlight what they've done on the track and enjoy a spectacular evening watching it.
And entries are still open for the mare sales for anyone who wants to nominate a mare. Harry?
Yes, entries are open, closing very, very soon. So please don't hang around. Obviously, the sales for weanling is 5th and 6th of May, Chairman's the 8th of May, and the broodmare sale the 9th of May. So if you are looking to enter into one of those sales, please do so as soon as possible, because entries close very soon.
Great, Harry. Thanks for your time and all the best.
Sorry, all the information is on the website as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Harry.
Tim, just obviously, Harry, there talking about the mare sales. You've been ringing around a few people having a chat about what they may look like. I mean, what have you been learning as you've been sort of going around the traps trying to work out which mares are going where?
Well, Orchestral, who obviously she ran on Saturday at Ellerslie at the Champions Day, and for those who watched the race, she just didn't want to go at all early. And so I thought, well, maybe that's the end of her. But having spoken to Roger James and the owner, Colin Litt, 2 things. She's been sort of in season, according to Colin, and as we know, with mares, that can cause them you lose interest on the day and not perform. So they're pressing ahead, and also She's immensely, dual Group 1 winner. Her sister sold 2.4 million Karaka this year. But Colin has got 3 or 4 mares, sort of just new to breeding, I guess. He sold a Super Seth colt for 150,000 at Karaka this year to friends Wattle Bloodstock and Stephen Gray. He wants to keep her, even despite, what's she worth? 2 million plus probably, but he wants to play the long game. So that'll be interesting. So she's off the market. She would have been one of, the star attractions, commanded international interest. Same with Amelia's Jewel, owned and bred by Peter Walsh in WA. She won't be going to a sale ever at this stage. So Peter wants to keep hold of her as well. And then, Bella Nipotina, the Everest winner. Look, say that there's Michael Christian who owns and bred her and owns her. He's got his group have got 50%. He desperately wants to keep her, but she's immensely valuable. Can he afford to buy out the partners who aren't breeders? That's when you go into syndicates, this is what happens, isn't it? And the easiest way is to go through a sale, whether that's Chairman's, Magic Millions, or even online. Who knows where that'll play out? So that, she would be rising 8-year-old, but again, with her record, what she's achieved, she'd be right up there as one of the best mares of the year. And a Tissue as well from Chris Waller's stable, Go Racing. I'd say they pulled her out of the Magic Millions last year, raced her on. She won an Empire Rose, paid off. But I'd say definitely this year she'll go through a sale. You'd think probably Magic Millions is in the box seat to get her, but time will tell where she ends up and which auction she goes to.
Yep. And we've also got the Adelaide yearling sale, of course, on Monday and Tuesday next week. Tim, as things roll on, we've obviously had a bit of a break of the yearling sales market for a week or so because the March sale in Queensland was pushed back because of the impacts of Cyclone Alfred. But what can we expect out of Adelaide, Tim? I guess that sale's been sort of ticking along okay, probably better than expected over the last couple of years.
Well, it's got a real following from vendors and from buyers. They love getting over there. Glenelg, it's almost like a working holiday for everyone over there. It's sort of quite relaxed, but there's some good horses that come out of it. Vidora from years ago, but traders can always find a nice horse for not a lot of money. And then the local vendors, Mill Park or a few of them, Cornerstone and Ralph Satchel's Willow Grove, always bred a nice horse, sell a good horse, and they target, a lot of their good horses go there. So it will be a buyer's market, but again, there'll be nice horses come out of it. I'd say it'll be a genuine market. People are taking there to sell. Just how active the local trainers are. A little bit of optimism in South Australia, I guess. They like to support their local sale and the Jollies and Clarkins and, obviously won the Adelaide Cup on Monday. So hopefully there's a bit of reinvestment going on.
Tim, moving on to racing now, as we alluded to, it was a big week on the track for Godolphin with wins in the 2 2-year-old features in Sydney. Obviously one for James Cummings, one for Anthony and Sam Freeman, as well as, of course, Tom Kitten in the All-Star Mile. 2 questions out of the weekend for you at that, Tim. Where does Tom Kitten sit among Australia's sort of top milers at the moment? And secondly, will Tempted be the horse that takes James Cummings to another cold slipper?
First question about Tom Kitten. Look, I just went and looked at his ratings before that I accessed ratings to win, and that was his highest rating performance since he won the Spring Champion as a spring 3-year-old. It's a very consistent horse, and a lot of those milers are, obviously Mr. Brightside's the benchmark there. Another Will was unlucky. Cherwolf in Sydney, who, he just sort of had a minor setback and had to go back in distance last Saturday and still ran quite well. So I'd say he'll be ready to sort of, when looking at his spring ratings, is sort of similar to to Tom Kitten, slightly above maybe. So again, it'll come down to luck in running, the maps, pattern of the day, all good rides, all those sort of things. There's 5-6 horses that there's not a lot between them. Could make for great betting races. Obviously, there's Via Sistina, probably better at 2,000 metres, but you'd think she'd be favourite, and if they clashed in some of those races. But as I said, makes for great racing when there's 5 or 6 chances, and everyone you can have a solid opinion on, or varying opinions on where horses fit in, but there's not a lot between them, in my view.
Yeah, indeed.
And on the 2-year-olds, well, it's an open year, wasn't it? Everyone was spruiking Woderton, and I probably got caught up in that after his debut win as well. Chris Waller's a master at peaking them, as we saw with Joliestar in the Newmarket. Can he get Woden to bounce on Saturday week in the Golden Slipper? He appeared to have every chance the other day, and maybe he's more a size horse. And at 1,400, I'm not sure, but very open race. And James Cummings has proven, well, year after year, particularly since he's been at Godolphin, that he can get these horses just to continually improve. Like Tom Kitten, won stakes races at 2, still, going to near his peak and improving at 4. So I'd suspect with the 2-year-old as well, going to be right in the mix. Tempted, that is.
Yeah, it's also been a big week for Waikato Star to confirm their champ. I Wish I Win is now retired on Wednesday. But of course, it was a big week because Super Seth got another Guineas winner. You had a chat with Mark Chittick the other day. It was an interesting chat about, I guess, the ups and downs of paying a decent amount of money or a large amount of money for a profile stallion, and just how long it takes to get that success. And even now, sort of, with his second crop at the track and obviously 2 Guineas winners in the last 2 weeks, there's still a little way away from sort of, seeing seeing their way to profitability on this horse, aren't they?
Mark was very open and appreciated that, how, you'll think it's the breeders are the ones making the money and the stallion farms, and we'll go on about service fees, they're too high, this and that. But it's a function of how much they had to pay, particularly in New Zealand. Obviously, it's a smaller market compared to Australia, and how many breeders they can attract or mares they can attract. So they paid 15.5 million Aussie off the track. By the time he covered his first mare, Super Seth owed his owners $18 million, a lot of money to get back. And as Mark was very frank and honest and said, when his first foals arrived, because he's by Done Deal, who throws very neat but not massive horses, they wanted to put big mares to him to ensure they got size. So they probably got it wrong. And there were a few big sort of horses that were a bit too big. And now they've got, they're up to their, fourth crop, and they've worked out that sort of neater, medium-sized mares seem to work, and you can clearly, at the end of the day, up until, yearling sales, the market judges, and then then the track's the ultimate test and decides whether the stallion can make it or not, and his horses can clearly gallop. 2 Cracker Millions winner, 2 Guineas winners, a couple of nice 2-year-olds. Kilman won like the other week and I'm not sure if it's accepted yet for Saturday. So some very nice horses coming through. You might hit a bit of a flat spot because he's smaller third crop that yearlings through the sale at the moment, but he'll see, they will get their money back, but they haven't yet, and be an important pillar of the stallions in New Zealand for sure for years to come.
Just a quick mention of the Rosehill situation, and the ATC put out on Wednesday a note out to members with the process, and I guess it was a 15-page document attached to that, which what actually the voting process around the approval of the Rosehill proposal looks like. The main difference being is that it's a $5 billion deal directly with government. So they're pretty much going to go straight to government and ask them to pay $5 billion for Rosehill based upon the valuations they have. I mean, there's a variety of there's a couple of proposals that have to be approved within that. I urge you to check out the coverage in the straight to get a bit more. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, otherwise this podcast will go for 4.5 hours, but just wanted to make sure that we're across that as well. Okay, it's time for our daily stat of the week, and this one's all about Harry Angel, a name that's definitely up in lights right now. Did you know he's the youngest sire of the top 10 of Australia's leading sires for the 2024-2025 season, with nearly $10 million in progeny earnings? Names like All-Star Mile winner Tom Kitten, as well as Angel Capital, Arkansas Kid, and Stretton Angel are already making their mark, and the list keeps growing. And it's not just on the track. His yearlings are selling big as well. If you're not keeping an eye on Harry Angel, it's time to start. Finally, in the wagering landscape, I wrote an article this week on the possibility of a fourth big player in the Australian market. Clearly, a few people are reading it because I got a little bit of feedback from a few other people in the market that felt like they could have got mentioned about it. But this is probably about the better proposal to take over PointsBet. Now, I want to point out here that PointsBet's boards have accepted an alternative proposal from Japanese player Mixi. Mixi have already got a presence in Australia through BetM, but not a well-known player in Australia. Now, that's not to say that Japanese that Japanese company can't become a major player in Australia, but if they were to buy out PointsBet and you add a little bit to BetM on there, they're probably not going to have that sort of plus 10% of the market, which we've been looking at to try to get a player in that space for a while. It's been about the same for about 5 or 6 years that we've had the situation where we've had three big players in the market: Sportsbet, Entain, which obviously has the Ladbrokes and Neds brand, and of course Tabcorp. What is interesting is Betr want to get to that 10 to 15% sweet spot. They see that as a really important aspect of the economics just become a lot better, and the commercial aspects of running a business become a lot better in that spot. And they're really, really determined and press their case. I had a good chat with Andrew Menz, their CEO, late last week. There's a story up on the Straight at the moment. I sort of read about that. The points that Menz make are quite interesting. Obviously, he's got a bit of a barrow to push here, but from my perspective, what is interesting is that he believes if you get to that market and you get a fourth big player, it does change the dynamic because it becomes a lot more competitive. They'll have to produce better products. And he thinks that longer term Australian punters will be better off because they'll have better products. Will they have better prices? Well, he couldn't agree to that. But what he did say was there'll be better products out there and competition is good. What he did admit to, however, which is interesting, is that every time a player has got beyond sort of that 10% mark, a fourth player in the market, it's been acquired. So, yeah, obviously there's a play here. We know what Matt Tripp, who is the chairman of Betr/Bluebet, has worked before, of building up his companies and having them acquired by major other companies. But, Bluebet seem really determined to this. They could, even if the PointsBet deal doesn't get done, there's a path to 10% for them. So it's interesting in that regard. And the other question is, if Mixi come into the Australian market, and we shouldn't underestimate them, they're a massive company in Japan. They've got great reach. It will change things up a little bit and, definitely change the market regardless of what happens. So we'll see what happens in there, but I just thought to mention that from a wagering perspective. There's a bit going on in that space at the moment, Tim. Thanks for joining us on Straight Talk, brought to you by Darley and Inglis. Don't forget to give us a rating wherever you're listening to us on our podcast, be it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Podbean. There's a variety of platforms there. Give us a rating, send us an email at editor@thestraight.com.au and let us know what you're thinking or who you might want us to get on as a special guest. Yep, and we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for your time.